Android Soo Parallel Blue, written and illustrated by Diana. Chapter 4. The next day, Sue walked down to Sten's office to see if there were any jobs for her. Kay was already there, standing on Sten's desk. "I don't have anything for either of you yet today," said Sten, glancing down at Sue as she entered the office. "If something comes up, I'll contact you." When they were both out in the hall, Sue asked Kay, "How much do you know about Zoprat? Do you know anyone who works there?" "No, I don't. Most of my android friends are like me, working for smaller companies. And I've heard once an android starts working for Zoprat, they never want to leave," replied Kay. "Is there any way we can find out something more about that place?" asked Sue. "There's the library. I have a personal information feed at my apartment, but the library will have more access and a faster feed. They have an Android section there with feed lines that will fit our memory ports." They took the tube to the library about a mile away. There were many people there and some androids. They had to be careful not to accidentally get stepped on by humans who weren't always watching where they walked. They managed to make it to a small side room off the main library. There was a row of small keyboards and screens, half of which were in use by other androids. "We have to input a search to pull up the information we want," said Kay. "There's bound to be more information than we want by just searching Zoprat, so we'll need to narrow it down a bit." "What is it that you want to know?" "Yesterday I saw Thought, one of the androids I came with through the time portal. You met him that first day. There seemed to be something wrong with him. He said he was working for Zoprat, though originally he was going to try to get his old job back. When I asked him about Zoprat and how he came to be there, he was very vague about it, and he didn't seem to recognize me. So I want to get more information on Zoprat to see if that is somehow related to Thought's strange behavior." Kay began typing in search criteria. First, a background on Bry, owner of Zoprat. File titles appeared on the screen. Both Kay and Sue plugged library feed lines into their memory ports. Kay picked the titles Sue wanted to download, and the information went directly into their memories. At first, all they could find out about Bry was that he started the company 7 years ago by buying a small repair business named Zoprat in Serapi. Then he acquired 6 more offices throughout the city during the next 4 years. Some of the details about how he got those other 6 offices were not clear. Apparently, he didn't actually purchase all of them. Some of them seemed to have been given to him in exchange for something else. Then 3 years ago, Bry suddenly started making a lot more money after hiring a woman named Tran to oversee the upkeep and repair of the androids in Bry's employ. Then Bry began to acquire more repair offices in many other cities until he had a total of 1,253 offices. Sue and Kay found out that though there had been many complaints filed by humans against Bry for working his androids too hard, most of them had eventually been dropped without being resolved or withdrawn. Some humans who hired Bry's androids noticed that something seemed to be wrong with them and would register complaints with the Fair Treatment of Androids office, the FTAO. This office first opened just a few years ago to address concerns about how some androids were being abused by their owners. Sympathetic humans argued that androids should at least have the protection that pets and farm animals had. This office did not exist in Sue's time. After they got all the pertinent information they could from the library, Sue and Kay went back to Enviro Repair to talk with Sten and find out what she knew about Bry. Because they were both in the same business, Sue thought Sten must know something about him. Kay and Sue walked into Sten's office and waited for her to finish talking with Tink about a job. "What can I do for you two?" Sten looked down at Sue and Kay as they walked up the steps to the top of Sten's desk. "We were wondering if you know anything about Bry and his company Zoprat," said Kay. "I saw Thought on the street yesterday, and he said he was working at Zoprat. Thought's behavior was very strange, so I want to find out more about Zoprat," said Sue. "Well," said Sten as she sat back in her chair, "for as large as that company is, I haven't heard much about it or Bry. About a year ago, my friend Dave needed some repair work, but I didn't have an available Android. So Dave called Zoprat. When the Android arrived, Dave noticed how listless the Android was and how she seemed to be damaged, but was working anyway. Most of Dave's experience with androids has been through Enviro repair, so the contrast between the androids that come from here and the one from Zoprat was quite striking to him. First, Dave tried to contact someone at Zoprat, thinking maybe they didn't realize the android shouldn't have been working. Though he left many messages, Zoprat never contacted him. Dave then registered a complaint with the Fair Treatment of Androids office. 1 week later, he withdrew his complaint. He told me, making me promise not to do anything about it, that he received an anonymous communication saying if he didn't withdraw the complaint, it would be reported to the tax office with verification that he hadn't been paying all the taxes he owed for the past 5 years. Dave couldn't afford to pay the back taxes and penalties. There was a chance he may even have had to serve some jail time. So the next day he withdrew the complaint. Sten rose from her chair and walked around to the other side of the desk. I've heard other vague things about the negative business practices of Zoprat, but nothing concrete and nothing personally about Bry. Thank you, Sten. That's very helpful, along with the information we got at the library, said Sue. What are you planning to do? Asked Sten. I don't know yet, but something was wrong with Thought. He didn't even seem to recognize me, and he was fine only the day before, said Sue. Sten sat back down and looked across at Sue standing next to the antique clock on the corner of her desk. Maybe Thought's behavior is an after effect of coming through that time warp. That could be, but none of the rest of us seem to have experienced an after effect, replied Sue. I'd like to talk to Tish and Lycone about this. Do you know if they're here? They both came back from a job about an hour ago and should be in your room, said Sten. Whatever you do, be careful. It seems Bry has some very powerful friends in the city. Sue and Kay stepped out of Sten's office and walked down the hall to Sue's room, discussing what they wanted to do next. I want to talk to Tish and Lycone about Thought. They both know him better than I, and maybe they can shed some light on his condition. When Kay and Sue walked into her room, Tish and Lycone were both there. Lycone had his sleeve pulled up over his shoulder, and Tish was squirting some oil into the ball joint. Sue sat down at the table and said, I'd like to talk to you both about Thought. Everyone sat down at the table, and Sue continued. Yesterday I saw Thought outside on the street, and he seemed very disoriented. I was wondering if either of you experienced any disorientation since returning through the time warp, or if you know anything about Thought that might explain his behavior. I've been fine, said Lycone. Me as well, said Tish. I probably know Thought better than Lycone, and I've never known him to be disoriented. Yesterday he didn't recognize me. He talked briefly about working for a place named Zoprat, and when I asked him what happened with the old job he was trying to return to, he had nothing to say. Kay and I have done some research on Zoprat and think it is a less than reputable company. We would like to get some more information, but that would involve going through their main office building and snooping around, explained Sue. Kay said, They probably won't give us the information voluntarily, so we may need to use subterfuge to find out what we want. Bry, the man who owns Zoprat, has a lot of influence, and there could be some danger. If either of you would rather not help, we will understand, said Sue. We'll help. Sue looked up to see Lee and Lou standing at the open door with Tink. They apparently heard the whole conversation and wanted to help. I used to work at Zoprat 4 years ago, said Tink, entering Sue's room, followed by Lee and Lou. Bry made all his androids work very hard, and he didn't pay well compared to other repair shops. But I was having a hard time finding a job, and Zoprat said they'd hire me. Then after about a year, Bry hired a woman named Tran. She was supposed to be some sort of android doctor. Bry started advertising for more android employees, promising large salaries and benefit packages, something I knew he didn't give his employees. Tink continued explaining. Sometimes I would see androids come into the office before he hired them, and see them again later after they were working at Zoprat for a while. They were always changed, somehow less animated or something. Tink struggled to find the right words to describe the change. I once saw an old movie about a man who performed a ritual on other men to bend them to his will. After they were changed, he called them zombies. That's something like the change I was seeing at Zoprat with the new android employees. When even the androids that had been working there before Bry hired Trans started to change, I thought it best to find employment elsewhere. One day I just didn't go back. Zoprat tried to contact me after that, but I never replied. I guess they forgot about me. We need to get into the main office building. Do you know anything about the layout of that building? Kay asked Tink. Yes, that's the original Zoprat office, and I was in most parts of the building when I worked there. We know something, said Lilu in unison. Lee went on to explain. We have the layout of that building in our memory. How did you get that? Sue asked, amazed. The last place we worked, Quick Rep, had a bunch of old info tabs on file from all the jobs they ever had. The original Zoprat office used to be a warehouse, and before Bry bought the building, they were called there to fix a temperature control problem, said Lou. Then in unison, Lilu said, We were curious about the old info tabs and put them all into our memory.